Hi, everybody. I'm sorry that took so long. Oh my goodness. I have to update the link on YouTube because, boy, I kind of messed that one up. I have some technological difficulties. You would think that I would be better at this by now, but with the live streaming, I just really struggle with making it work. So that's unfortunate, but I am working on it. Okay, so bear with me for one moment. Sorry about this, guys. Sorry about this. Sorry about this. Um, okay, so today's video is going to be really important and uh for the most part it's going to be me talking, but then I'm also going to bring in a guest who's going to help me explain what I have to say even better because I'm still new at this. So, um my whole vision here before I start, I just have to update the link. My goodness gracious. Okay. Okay, now I update the link so everybody can go to the right link. Um, Go ahead and let me know where you guys are coming from. I always love to see how many places people are coming from. Seems like a lot of the time it's all over the place. Okay, so let me let's just pretend like I'm starting over, starting now. Oh boy. Okay. So, hi everybody. Most of you know, I'm Maddie. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, I talk about a certain form of child psychological abuse that I went through for about 20 years. Um, and I was made to reject my dad. I was manipulated by my mom to reject my dad, to fear him, hate him. And our healthy loving bond was severed without any justification, any justifiable reason. I'm not saying I lost my dad. I'm saying that I was manipulated to hate him, reject him, and fear him. That is psychological abuse. To manipulate a child to reject their parent, this is a very real form of child psychological abuse. But the reason kids like me don't get the help they need is because some of the people who are supposed to help us, the professionals, are divided. And that division is costing children their relationships and their emotional security, in many cases, their sanity. So today, I'm not just telling my story, I'm speaking directly to any professionals, mental health experts, clinicians who are too busy choosing sides to save the children trapped in this abuse. I'm not an expert. I always give the disclaimer. I like to often give the disclaimer that I'm not an expert. I'm not a clinician, a counselor. I didn't go to school for this. I lived through this. I know this pathogen intimately because I lived with it for 20 years. Since the beginning of when I figured out that I had been through this psychological abuse, I wanted to know the truth. Since then, I've been focused entirely on helping alienated kids learn the truth, and for me, myself, to learn the truth about what had happened to me, about how we can fix it. Um, so yeah, ever since starting my project, especially, I've tried to get to the bottom of a serious question, which is why aren't children like me getting help? Why is this child abuse actually been being enabled and perpetrated by the very people who should be protecting these kids? Why? And so right off the bat, when I started my project, I contacted many of the psychologists, researchers, and experts in this space. I was shocked to find most of them very rude, condescending, and dismissive. Not all of them, but a large majority. Plus, even the folks who were pleasant in their interactions with me left me with a very unsettled feeling in my gut. Nobody had any real life answers, any real solutions. Not even for me, an adult trying to process and grieve all of this. I emailed one expert, Dr. Amy Baker, who told me to take my videos down and that she wouldn't agree to an interview with me because I didn't have a big enough following. I reached out to Dr. Childress, who also told me that I'm, quote, harming the cause, end quote, and he proceeded to question my own motives for sharing my experiences, as if I'm trying to punish my mom, for example. I did work with Dr. Jennifer Harmon last year on the Colorado State University event, and I really do appreciate her help with that. Thank you, Dr. Harmon. Furthermore, I also interviewed Dr. Burnett when I first started my project, and I am grateful for his time and effort regarding that interview. I've had a couple more interactions with various experts, but I think that gives you a, a brief synopsis of how it's gone for me. Now, let's talk about why children like me don't get help and why it keeps happening. I've often thought, and this thought scares me, that if I were 9 years old right now and the abuse were to continue again, nothing would have changed to save me. Everything that happened 20 years ago to enable and further the abuse would have happened today. Maybe it would even be worse today. That's terrifying thought to me. So I'm going to break it down to the simplest facts about why children are not getting help from the professionals and experts in the space. There are two main schools of thought in the professional world of this psychological child abuse, which has been historically referred to as parental alienation. You have two main schools of thought. First, you have the Gardnerians. Named after Richard Gardner, this camp believes in parental alienation as its own diagnosis. The idea that alienated children display a predictable set of symptoms, which should be recognized in the DSM. Their argument is that if we can label it in the DSM, courts will finally take this abuse seriously. Insurance companies will cover treatment. Clinicians will have clear diagnostic criteria, and even that it will just give alienated children the attention and care they deserve. Their main focus is trying to come up with a solution, do enough psychological research so that they have facts and statistics on this form of abuse. A lot of them have, sorry, I can't talk right now. A lot of them have heavily focused on trying to get parental alienation into the DSM. So these professionals, experts, they have spent decades trying to prove that parental alienation and or parental alienation syndrome is real, empirical, and diagnosable. So some of these people have dedicated entire careers or even an entire decade or more to trying to prove that it's real. And many professionals espouse this idea, but perhaps the greatest force behind getting parental alienation into the DSM has been historically Dr. William Burnett. But there are most of the professionals in this space are under the camp of Gardnerians, who are trying to prove that parental alienation is real, empirical, and diagnosable. That is their main focus, not only to try to get it in the DSM, but to prove that parental alienation is real. That is their main focus. And then you have a second camp, the "it already exists" camp. And this camp is led by mostly one professional, Dr. Craig Childress, but it's also incorporated and espoused by Dorsy, who has a program for reuniting families. This camp, the quote, it already exists, end quote, camp, they claim that you don't need to wait for parental alienation to be in the DSM. This isn't a syndrome, and it's already diagnosable under constructs that are in the DSM already, like child psychological abuse, pathogenic parenting, coercive control, and shared delusional disorder or fictitious disorder imposed on another. They argue that getting that this camp, the it already exists camp, argues that focusing on parental alienation and trying to get it into the DSM and recognized by different uh, organizations is a distraction, a way of kicking the can down the road while children continue to suffer. And the argue, or sorry, and treatment protocols exist. That is what the already exists camp is arguing. The diagnosis exists. The treatment protocol already exists. So the problem in their eyes is that the Gardnerians are just distracting from the fact that we already have the ability to diagnose and treat this in the family system. It reminds me of the quotation, you don't need to rename the fire to know that the house is burning down. So just to set for 1 minute of how this has affected me is that I came into this space and everything I heard from the Gardnerians really resonated. The 17 alienating tactics by Dr. Baker, I had recognized all of those in my own life. The 5-step model by Dr. Burnett, that model was very common sense to me. That's exactly what happened to me. So naturally, I started to fall into that group. I I kind of bought in for a while that, and if you go back and watch some of my earlier videos before I learned new information and changed my mind about things, you will see that I argue again and again, parental alienation is psychological abuse. Parental alienation is psychological abuse. And yes, it is absolutely psychological abuse. And at the same time, it can already be identified, diagnosed, and treated because there are existing constructs in the DSM currently. Once I realized that there's already a solution for the abuse I went through, I started to wonder, then why aren't all of the professionals and experts implementing that solution? Why aren't all of them working together to solve this problem? Why are most of them, like 95% of them, focused on instead proving that parental alienation is real? Because that doesn't help the kids now. It might eventually help kids down the line if they can do so, but they're spending their time doing studies and funding studies that are focused on the psychology of the abuse I went through and to prove patterns and to prove that it's real. And we don't need to do that because we can already help these children by the existing diagnoses and existing treatments that have proven to actually work. So one thing about me is that I don't want to be doing this forever. What I mean by that is I want to make an impact and I want to do what I can for this community and for the children like that are going through what I went through. But I want to do it as quickly as possible. I don't want to be doing this forever. I have a lot of goals. I have a lot of other things that I'm passionate about that I'm excited to do with my life. And so I want to help the kids in this situation. And if we already have the help for them, Why are we putting all this effort instead towards fighting about whether or not parental alienation is real and trying to do studies to prove that it is? Because we don't need to do that because we already have a solution. And this is what I want to talk about, really talk about. And it was hard for me too at first to hear that and try to make sense of it. I hung on a little bit longer than I wish I should have. I hung on a little bit longer than I should have to the the research being that has been produced by the Gardnerians and the Gardnerians' constructs of alienation. I It resonated with me and it seemed helpful. It seemed helpful in explaining what I've been through. But now that I'm thinking about it from the other perspective of actually helping these families, actually getting therapists to see it and diagnose it and treat it, to get guardian ad litems to see it, diagnose it, and treat it, to get everyone in who in that child's life to see it and to get them help and have the help be available for them. It's to me a no-brainer to go with the diagnoses already in the DSM and the treatments already available. So, what is the result of the professional divide? The Gardnerians versus the it already exists camp. Inaction, paralysis, silence. Courts are confused as a result of this divide. Therapists are undertrained and confused. Schools are blind to the signs. Parents are desperate and confused. Children are continuing to be psychologically abused. When these two camps argue over semantics, methodology, and recognition, kids continue to reject their loving parents. Kids continue to endure psychological abuse. Targeted parents continue to be accused and erased. And family courts are paralyzed by a lack of consensus. When professionals prioritize theory over treatment and real world solutions, progress dies in peer-reviewed journals. Meanwhile, a child somewhere is being taught that love is a weapon, unsafe, and that rejecting a parent is the way they can survive. So I begin to wonder if the diagnosis and treatment for the abuse I went through as a child already exists, then why are professionals so hell-bent on proving that parental alienation is real? That parental alienation be added to the DSM and studied in major universities? It started to not make sense to me. So I started talking. I started asking questions. I even questioned the experts' motives. Were these people having good intentions? Were they good intentions? Were these people who had good intentions who fell down a rabbit hole somehow? Why would some of these experts continue to try to get their supposed syndrome into the DSM rather than focus on the cure that already exists? Why are we doing research to prove that it exists when we can already diagnose and treat it? I could not understand what was going on. I was so confused and I was angry. I just wanted to get these experts all in a room together and have a huge conversation and work it all out. I actually reached out to all of them asking to do that at one point. And I started to play devil's advocate. I mean, I even asked myself, do they want to focus on this because some of them have a lifetime of professional work at risk, a reputation at risk, money at risk? Is there a financial motive for the denial of the diagnoses and treatment models we already have? Some of these questions are unclear to me. Sorry. Um, and I was, and more than anything, I still am just trying to get to the truth of the matter. I will respond to some questions in the live chat, by the way, at the very end of this video. I just want to get through this real quick. So while I don't yet know all the details and the truth, I remain committed, I promise you, to learning and exposing the truth as I learn it. And you can have a differing opinion. That's totally fine. I think having different opinions and being able to talk about it is part of what makes life beautiful. Life would be so boring if we all had the same opinion. And even considering that the Gardenerian camp might just be distracting from actually helping the kids heal and um, just, you know, kind of running in circles while we already have we already have a diagnoses and treatment protocols. I just became more confused. So today I'm going to bring on someone who knows this topic more um, in depth than I do. So Dorsey's going to help me go through some very important points about the diagnoses, um, the treatment protocols, and the different um, mechanisms that are already in place. And I think this is really important to go over. I mean, there's even a diagnostic checklist. So we're going to start with a diagnostic checklist for pathogenic parenting. Um, and then there's also a parenting practices rating scale, as well as um, this this important treatment protocol that's already in place. Because like I said, I don't want to make a career out of this. I want to help fix this if I can expose anything that will help fix it because I don't want to be doing this forever. I want to move on to other goals, other equally important goals. Okay, so here I'm going to let Dorsey into the video. Sorry, this has been all over the place, guys. I'm also holding my little baby here, so I'm just like my head is everywhere. But this is such an important message. Thank you for being here. I hope that you can hear all of this with an open mind. Before I let Dorsey in, I did want to make one point. There is also the radical feminist movement right now that's trying to claim parental alienation is not real at all. Like they're not arguing over what we should call it. They're arguing that it doesn't exist at all. And so for me, it was a little difficult to consider that maybe the viewpoints I had held previously, some of that was some of that were points that Tina Swethin has tried to argue. So it's not such a black or white issue, I don't think, everybody. I think it's way more of a gray area with this because some people are arguing we shouldn't call it parental alienation, but it does exist. Some people are arguing we shouldn't say parental alienation. It doesn't exist. It's just a tactic that abusive fathers try to use in court to get their kids back. And then you have people that are saying parental alienation exists and we're going to spend our careers and all of our effort and time and money to trying to prove that and do studies to prove that. And then you have the fourth camp that says, yes, this abuse exists, but we don't need to prove it because we already have diagnoses and treatment models that work for it. So without further ado, let's bring in Dorsey. Oh, I'm talking my head off today. Hey, Dorsey.
Oh,
Oh,
let,
there you are.
let me come
Hi.
off. Sorry, I was listening. So,
No, that's fine. I'm glad you were because now you know where I stopped.
yeah, excellent. Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling all of your like nervousness and like tech issues and stuff.
Yeah, okay. I just want to also say we had so many tech issues and you know, I think I'm nervous because I know this video is going to cause a lot of pushback.
Yeah, I know.
Um, that's why I'm really nervous. But since the beginning of this, and just as a personality trait in general, I always like to get to the truth of things, the
Me too.
truth of the matter. And I want to help as many kids as possible, as fast as possible, and families, not just the kids, everyone in that family. So I'm afraid that some people will be triggered or upset. Uh, and it's because some people have a lot of stake in the game.
Yeah, it's true. They do. They have
Yeah,
a stake in the game. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let me just say you're doing a phenomenal job. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
I know you're nervous. And of course, there's that you're not going to please everyone, obviously. And there's a lot of poisonous arrows that get lobbed when you take a stand for your beliefs and truth. And, you shared something in the beginning where you reached out to the Gardnerians and how rude and disrespectful a lot of them were. And I had the same experience almost 20 years ago. So I have such deep empathy and compassion for your experience in that because I've also experienced the same thing. In early days, that's all there was. I didn't know anything else. So parental alienation resonated with me as well. And, we've talked a little bit about this, how, the 18 or 17 factor model and the 8 symptoms and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, because those are things, right? Those are patterns of behavior that we can all recognize, and they can also be diagnosed using a diagnostic model. There's no new form of pathology. There is already a diagnosable pathology like what you were talking about. And I remember when I met Dr. Childress, I was already straddling the fence. I didn't know his work, but I knew the DSM-5 work. I knew personality disorders and the pathology and Ava.
Trying to
And
keep her out of the
out of
shop.
the thing.
Yeah.
And so I was already using the stuff from the parenting perspective, like this is what's happening. And when Dr. Childress and when our worlds collided, I was actually speaking at an alienation conference in Long Beach, and he was in the audience. The room was divided. There was experts on one side and parents on the other. And I remember like laying it out what I do with one of my programs, like this is what's happening, and this is personality disorders and blah blah blah. And I remember in the VIP section, Dr. Childress came up to talk to me, and he had on his hat. If anybody knows him, he usually wears this like baseball cap, and he drags his, what book bag with all of his stuff in, or work bag. And he was like, "Who are you? Like, where did you come from?" And I'm like, well, "I'm a kid of this family dynamic." And anyways, I went to his thing that he was teaching, and for mental health providers. And I'm like, yes, yes, this is what it is. Yes, finally a mental health provider actually
Yeah.
understands what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, and that was,
Where's, oh,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was, uh, I was just gonna wonder, so people, if you could break it down into the simplest form for people
Yeah.
in layman's terms, and I can pull up either of these documents if you want me to as you do it.
If you want to pull them up for the audience, that would be super helpful, I think, for them, because maybe not everybody's seen it, although I would think at this point, but we just had this conversation too. I'm like, everybody knows, and you're like, I didn't
I
know.
don't know.
Not
No,
even
no.
possible. Right.
Yeah.
So,
So because people are going to play the devil's advocate, I'll play the devil's advocate because I'm
perfect.
sure for the critical people who are going to leave comments that are like, how does this work?
Yeah,
Okay, so how do you get a diagnosis? Which diagnosis? Um, and all and many other questions in that way.
let's
So
roll.
should I start with a diagnostic checklist?
Yes, let's
Or,
start there.
okay, I'm gonna try to share the page. Yeah, these technological difficulties. You really would think I'd be better at this by now.
I know, it's okay. I'm the same way. That's why I have somebody on my team to do it for me.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm trying to figure out how to put it on the screen. Okay, hopefully this works. Sorry, guys. Okay,
Perfect.
is that good?
Yep, that's fine.
There we go.
Perfect. Excellent. So this is the diagnostic indicator checklist for pathogenic parenting that Dr. Childress created based on already diagnosable symptoms from and constructs accepted by the DSM-5, which is the DSM we are in right now, and for diagnosing child psychological abuse. So do you want me to go through each one just as the simplest terms?
In very, very simple terms, because we can share the document, I guess, so people
Yep.
have that resource.
Yep.
Um, that'd be great.
Yeah. So symptom one is a suppression of the attachment system. So the rejection. A child has a normal range parent and they emotionally cut them off. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not talking to them or seeing them, but their behavior towards them has changed. So the most severe form is where they just stop seeing their parent altogether. But an attachment system suppression is when the child starts rejecting a parent for no good reason. And so does this sound familiar? Does this sound like a Gardnerian thing that they talk about?
It sounds like the five-factor model, yeah.
Right. So, but this is already an attachment system suppression is already an accepted construct of psychology. So we don't need to relabel it as something else. We can label it what it is. It's an attachment system suppression. So why is this happening? So if there is evidence or if there's a clinician interviewing and treating the family and they should be assessing the family, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this comes up pretty quickly where the child doesn't have a justifiable reason for rejecting a parent, or they have a reason, but it doesn't raise to the level of an attachment disorder. So this symptom one is a demonstrative attachment disorder. Now, regular people, layman's people, for all the parents watching, this means the child is turning on you. You once had a healthy relationship. Maybe there is something that happened, oftentimes a kernel of truth in all of these cases, and the child is now, I never want to see you again, you're out. So that parent is out. Okay, so it's the simplest term of an attachment disorder or an attachment system suppression. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, want to keep going?
Um, yes. So do you want to talk about this normal range parenting part?
Yep. So normal range parenting, this is when a parent's parenting is good enough, right? So let's talk about an example. Maybe a parent took the child's cell phone, or the child was acting out in protest behavior. They're starting to display attachment system suppression. The child acts out, and the targeted parent reacts to that. They yell, or they're like, "What are you doing?" And they do parenting stuff, right? And then all of the sudden, that becomes the reason for the child. So it comes after the child's attachment suppression, and the child is all of the sudden using that, or the other parent is, as a reason for the child to reject the parent. So normal range parenting is a broad spectrum, and we'll talk about that when we get to the parenting practices rating scale, but it's normal range parenting. So it's not an ongoing, pervasive, abusive parenting style. It's a normal range parenting style, and it's wide, right? Many parents have yelled at their children. It doesn't make them abusive parents, right? And so oftentimes, how the parent responds to the child gets used against them after the child starts escalating.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
So, do you want to move on to, so you have one, the attachment system suppression, two, A, personality disorder. What in the heck is going on? Personality traits. There we
Yes.
go. What
So,
in the heck? Okay,
yeah.
there we go.
So personality disorder traits, you can see them displayed here. This is towards the targeted or rejected parent. So the child starts to be haughty and arrogant towards that parent. They have an elevated stance in the family hierarchy. So now the child, the minor child, is now making judgments towards the rejected parent. So the parent can do no right. The child is now at the same playing field as the parent, as the parents. And so a normal family hierarchy, and this isn't Childress, this is the kahunas, like Mnuchin, for example, that's mom and dad and child down here. We don't put children at the same playing level as mom and dad. Now, you mentioned some of like the Tina Swithins and her crowd. They really believe that the voice of the child should be heard, but oftentimes it's the manipulated child. So we never want to put the child of any voice in a legal setting to have to pick or choose a parent, good, bad, or indifferent. The adults should act like adults, and especially the professionals surrounding adults that are destabilized, to help the child find their authenticity and be in relationship with two healthy parents. So the personality disorder traits, this is the fingerprinting of a pathogenic parent, a personality disordered parent, or somebody who has the traits. Okay. So if the child, these are impossible systems and are symptoms in all of society. So if a child has the fingerprinting of a personality disorder, some of these traits, all of these traits, then we have to ask the question, who's causing those traits? Is it mom? Is it dad? Sometimes it's both, but who's causing it? So what is the problem here, right? So we have to have a honest appraisal of what's going on. And these kids, when they have these traits, they expect their parents to do things for them, all while having no empathy for the emotional cutoff and the rejection of that parent. It's like that parent, their personhood and parenthood is in the garbage, and the child is now elevated. And there's oftentimes splitting, although the pathogenic parents are getting clever because the system is getting clever. So it's like the splitting is like, well, yeah, that the other parent, the allied parent, no, I mean, they still make me mad and stuff, but I still never want to see the other parent. So it's starting to get masked in not full all or nothing, but
Mm.
it's still all or nothing. So if the child is still, I'm refusing to have any repair, and this is, I think, the critical component that the professionals miss is the importance of repair. It's all about elimination and not about repair. And
Mm.
it's like, no, we must repair relationships between parents and children. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, that makes sense. Sorry, let me go back to, I thought you were going to continue to talk. Let me go back to the share. So I have about 15 minutes.
Okay, good. Let's roll through it as quickly as we can.
Okay. So, oh, here. Can you see the screen?
No, it just says you have to start screen sharing. Oh,
Oh.
it says you started, but
Mhm. I'm just laughing at myself because
it's all
I
good.
am such a mess today. Okay. DI checklist and oh, I see what the problem is. Hold on, give me a second. Okie dokie.
While you're doing that, I can still talk. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
talk about the phobic anxiety, which is 2B, which is a parent phobia. So a child is afraid of the parent, right? I'm uncomfortable. I can't go. It's too scary, but there's no repair still. It's like, well, we have to keep the child as comfortable as possible. So we never solve the problem, as the professional community sees it as nobody wants to make the child uncomfortable. And it's like, we grow in the spaces of being uncomfortable, and we want to address child safety first. Of course, it's a child protection issue, not a child custody issue. And we protect all abused children all the time. But if we don't get to the core of the problem, what is the abuse, then we leave children in abusive situations. So the father phobia or the mother phobia comes from a pathology of transgenerational trauma or a cross-generational coalition. So it's an unresolved childhood trauma from the allied parent that's getting projected into the current family situation. So the child is now being abused, the other parent is the perpetrator, and the allied parent is now the almighty protective parent. Like, I'm going to save this child, i.e., the inner child within themselves. So they have unresolved trauma. So
I
the,
want,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No, no, go
I,
ahead.
I wonder if this is why so many alienated kids are diagnosed with anxiety disorders.
Of course.
This
Yeah.
is why I was misdiagnosed with an anxiety disorder. But if my therapist had looked further, she would know that all my anxieties were about not going with my dad. That could have been a hint to tell her, oh, maybe she needs to take this test and look at this checklist.
It's so simple. I was literally having a conversation with a guardian ad litem yesterday and explaining the checklist, and you could see like the light bulbs coming out. You could feel it. It was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And it's like, I asked the questions and the guardian laid out the pathology. And I'm like, that, let me read the diagnostic criteria. Does that meet the criteria? Yes. It's like, check, check, check. So it's such a simple instrument. I'm so grateful that Dr. Childress created it, because it's so simple, stupid. It's like, does this exist or not? And we don't have to get into the semantics of it. Do the symptoms exist? And if the three diagnostic symptoms exist, then we know there's child psychological abuse going on. The question is, who's doing it? Is it mom? Is it dad? Or is it both? And then we pull out further and we look at the parenting. And this is where most clinicians get it wrong, because they get caught up in their confirmation bias. And it's not because they're bad people, it's because that's how we're wired as humans. And so they're looking for reasons to justify whatever decision is that they make. And most of them are making the same mistakes over and over and over again, because it's how they're trained and it's what they know. They don't want to do something different because that requires new knowledge. And new knowledge then makes you have to look back into the back of the car and into the trunk of all the children and families that
Oh,
maybe you didn't do it right in your past. And so making a change now requires acceptance and ownership of not making right decisions in the past. And this is, I think, one of the biggest, dirtiest, darkest secrets that nobody really wants to admit. And we're all fallible humans, right? And we all make decisions based on the tools we have at the time. And then when new tools come out, we have to make new, better decisions and choices. And I think it's this just unbelievably overwhelming, like, self-worth that people get stuck in. And so they make bad decisions over and over and over again, and children get caught in the middle. Yeah, of
can I say something, add something to that?
course. Of course. It's your
Um,
podcast.
you have to be willing to admit sometimes that you've gotten something wrong.
Yeah.
And as you know what that's like. Like when you
Yes.
learn that you have believed all these things that were lies, that you acted out on those lies, that you hurt your parent so
Mm-hmm.
badly, you have to be willing to admit that you were wrong. And that is so hard sometimes.
Yes.
And that's what I wish some of these professionals could understand. Like, you just have to be willing to admit that you are wrong sometimes in order to pursue the truth. And
That's
it's not anyone, it's not one person's fault, just one person's fault.
right.
So
It's
let's go. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm training mental health providers and in coaching. So I'm doing reunification coaching, and I'm taking them through this whole model, like how to recognize it and what the first, like, just start here. And then even using what the Battered Women's Justice Project, like what you were talking about earlier, there are no sides. There's one team. It's the team of healing for the family. There's one patient. It's the client, which is the family, mom, dad, and the children. And the parents don't become pathogenic. Like, they're not born that way. They become that way because they have unhealed trauma. So if we leave them out, they stay out. So we have to heal the whole family. And I just want to acknowledge the people that are going through the training right now, because it's not for the faint of heart. And the honesty and the vulnerability coming into the space and admitting, like, I didn't get that right, but I want to do it right. And learning and being open to a method that is accepted and using language that is accepted and using the simple instruments. It's not complicated. It's so simple.
So you have 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. That's it.
That's it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and three is an encapsulated persecutory delusion, a fixed and false belief. Okay, so the child has a fixed and false belief that even in the face of evidence, refuses to let it go. That's a delusion. So what's happening now is most mental health providers are reinforcing the delusion by saying, well, the child has come to believe it to be true, so we need to treat that truth versus, sorry, that's not true. And we must treat the pathology, not the delusion. And so I look at reports every single day and my eyeballs roll into my head. I'm like, people, it's so obvious, right? But they don't want to look at this, and they got caught up in the, as you say, two camps. There aren't really two camps. There's one truth. The truth is, this is child psychological abuse. It's diagnosable. Here's a simple way to diagnose it. And then it's simply, once you have a diagnosis, you can treat it. You said something in the beginning about how do you get it diagnosed? Well, unfortunately, most of the mental health providers surrounding this family dynamic are stuck. So they're stuck in Gardnerian, which now they're sort of morphing into, resist and refuse. So stupid. That's just a symptom. It's just another stupid label for the Gardnerians, if you will, to remain relevant. And it's ego driven. And it's unfortunate that it's ego driven, but it is. And you ask, why is this happening? I'll just say it because I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So I'm going to bravely say it right here on your
Go
podcast,
for it. Go for it.
is because everybody, the clinician, the people in this space are driven by ego. So if parental alienation dies, if you will, then they'd have to admit that they were wrong.
Like I said, yeah.
Yes. And then their entire career is over. Their legacy, if you will, is over. So they're more driven by their legacy and being right versus doing the right thing and helping families heal. And I flew under the radar for a really long time until I was involved in a really high profile case because I know this pathology as a child and as a practitioner. And when I was shoved out into the public eye, I was attacked by all sides.
Hmm.
Gardnerians, right? The mother's rights organizations, even the father's right, they all hate me. Like certain big people that are like all up in their ego. I don't really care because all I care about is we must solve the problem for the family. We must heal the kids and the parents. We first heal the parents because everybody's like, oh, the kids, and got to focus on one person. No, we focus on the family because you can't just work with one person when you have a family systems problem. And that's the other thing. Everybody's like, well, you're just trying to pitch your programs and all those things. It's like, I only created my programs because the professionals don't solve it. It's like, people, solve this for the kids. If you're not going to, I'm going to. And I would love, like, you have a mission. I think it's very similar to my mission. I would love that all the practitioners would speak in a unified voice
Hmm.
and solve this for every single person because there's already a solution that exists. And the
Hmm.
court system is waiting for us. They're waiting for people to tell them what to do. And when I get involved, we tell them what to do. It's so simple. And we never use the term parental alienation, even though now you looked at this checklist. Do they sound familiar?
Yeah.
They're the same. It's the same. So
Yeah.
call it what it is and stop fighting about it. Yeah. It's why everybody hates Dr. Childress on both sides because he's right. He is right. And what I love about Dr. Childress's work is I can remove him from the work. If you don't like him, fine. Who cares? You and he said this for years. It's not me and my
Right.
work. I just put it out there to make it easy for people to actually do what they're supposed to be doing. But you can diagnose and treat this without ever saying Dr. Childress, parental alienation, Dorsy Pruder, all the other people, you can actually solve this without any of us. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
to, I don't want to do this forever either. I had no idea I'd be doing this for 20 years. So, yeah,
I love that you mentioned that. It's not, if you don't like Dr. Childress, don't throw this, don't not listen to this video because it really stands alone without him.
it stands
Um,
alone with,
so
yeah,
I think, do you think we could do a part two soon? Because I have to go and I have to go in about 5 minutes and there's no way we can go through the
oh,
rest
of course
of
not.
the
Yeah,
diagnoses and the treatment protocol.
yeah,
So maybe we should do a part two if that's okay.
no, just kidding.
The people we have to inform.
Yeah,
Um, so if this video resonates with you or you think it's important, please share it. Please check out Dorsy's content and her channel as well. What is it called now? Dorsy
Dorsey
Pruder?
Pruder TV, because yeah, I'm expanding as well in my brand. So I changed it from End Parental Alienation to Dorsey Pruder TV. So you can just follow her. Thank you for
Yeah. If, you know, in a way, this is me doing this video. I'm nervous because it's me admitting that I've been wrong a little bit, you know? Because this the behaviors, the patterns of behavior that they prove in the research they do and everything like that, it resonates so much. It's almost as if it's like, yes, 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 yes. But
It's what it feels like. I fall down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so also these are just my opinions. I came to this conclusion myself. A lot of people kind of, I think, were trying to show me this point of view along
Mhm.
the way, over the past however long it's been, 2 years, a lot of different people. But
Yeah.
I had to come to this conclusion by myself.
Yes.
And yeah, so to the professionals in the space, experts in this space, all of you, please stop arguing because while you're trying to debate a diagnosis, prove a diagnosis, another child, yeah, another family is being torn apart.
Yes.
So please don't make the children currently experiencing this child psychological abuse wait 20 years like I had to,
Yeah.
or however, as long as Dorsey had to as well.
Yeah. I just want to say, as we're closing out, in a very non-condescending way, how proud I am of you for finding your voice and taking the arrows and listening to, seeing all the garbage that so many people have said about you and holding your integrity and being honest when you made a mistake. And it's not a mistake that you did with intention to hurt anyone. And it is what it is. You come into the truth when you come into the truth. And I want to remind everybody watching this because we have a lot of followers, some of ours overlap. I have a lot of haters and a lot of parents that are traumatized. And I just want to say this to the parents, the way you treat Maddie and me, even because I am also a child and everybody wants to put me in a different container because, I have a business and blah, blah, blah. I do this work to recover families. Period. And there's a million other things I could do. I'm not an idiot. And I do this work and many times want to leave this work because of how hard it is sometimes to listen to the things people say. But I want you to all remember that when you're negative towards people like Maddie and me and anyone really in this space, especially the children, I want you to know that how the energy that you are putting out there like that is coming back to you tenfold. And think about Maddie or me or whoever as your kid. So when you're nasty and rude and disrespectful or you disagree, you're that's your child. That's your child. So I just want you all to be aware of that. I understand that you're traumatized and you're hurting and all of those things, but be respectful. You can respectfully disagree with people. That's fine. You don't have to agree with me. It's fine. You don't have to agree with Dr. Childress or Maddie, but do it with respect and kindness, and especially for the kids. Maddie is a child, and some of the ways that people have spoken about her, you, and posted and stuff makes my stomach turn. And I just always remind people, this is a child coming into her truth, emerging out of the fog, and however she speaks. I mean, we talked about it early, and I'm like, listen, this is why you'll come to it on your own. I use the term too. This is how I use it. You're safe. There's a safe space. And I just want the kids watching to know that there are people like us that hold the space for you to come to your conclusions and find your voice, your authenticity, and that it's safe to do that. And so, Maddie, I just want to honor, deep bow of gratitude and honor you for the work that you've been doing, the voice, finding your way publicly, because I think there's a lot of people that are finding their way privately and they don't know how to find their voice. So I just want to honor you, and I respect you so much. So thank you for having me on here too. I really appreciate it. Making myself cry.
Oh,
You're such a
well,
beautiful soul.
thank you for saying all that. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's not easy to admit, but you know, and now people, I'm sure, are like, are you going to change the name of your project? Um, uh, we'll talk about that in the next episode about how I feel about the term if we need to. But thank you so much for being a mentor, friend. Thank you for being here to help explain all this stuff. And we'll look forward to a part two about the diagnoses and the treatment protocol after we might review the first part again for new people. But yeah, I'm excited just to know that there is help for these kids, that it gives me a lot of hope, to be honest. It really does. And so I think that's another reason why I thought this video was so important to make. It gives me hope. So I hope you found this helpful or insightful. Please leave a comment below about what you think. And any questions that you have for the next video and that maybe we can get to. I'm sorry that we didn't get to the live chat, but I have got to run right now. I will see you guys in the next episode, and thank you so much for being here, Dorsy.